Once again from our NBC News headquarters here in New York, this was day 1054 of the Trump administration. We have breaking news tonight about the news that is coming tomorrow morning. Both Politico and the Washington Post were first to report that committee chairs plan to announce the articles of impeachment during a press conference in the morning. Politico reports Democrats, quote, plan to unveil at least 2 articles of impeachment on Tuesday, charging President Donald Trump with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The Judiciary Committee plans to vote on the articles on Thursday. NBC News has also confirmed these latest developments, and this comes after another marathon hearing on the Hill in which Democrats and Republicans in the House Judiciary Committee faced off over the evidence compiled thus far against the president. During the hearing, Republicans made a point of bringing up the repeatedly debunked theory about Ukraine meddling in our 2016 election. As you watch this, remember, this is Russian disinformation.
A systemic, coordinated Russian interference effort does not mean that some Ukrainian officials did not work to oppose President Trump's candidacy.
Republican lawyer Steve Castor was later pressed on the extent of the president's repeated contacts with Russians.
Take a wild guess, Mr. Castor. How many times has President Trump met with Vladimir Putin or talked to him?
I don't know the number. It's
16.
Okay.
How many times has President Trump met at the White House with President Zelensky? It's 0. And who is President Trump meeting with at the White House tomorrow? Do you know?
I'm not.
It's Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov.
The conspiracy theory about Ukraine, this Russian disinformation, even got an airing this weekend from Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who will be a juror at any Senate impeachment trial.
Do you believe Ukraine meddled in the American election in 2016?
I do, and I think there's considerable evidence.
You do? You do?
Yeah. Chuck, let me point out a game that the media is playing. You know, a question that you've asked a number of people is you've said to senators sort of aghast, do you believe that Ukraine and not Russia interfered in the election? Look, on the evidence, Russia clearly interfered in our election. But here's the game the media is playing. Because Russia interfered, the media pretends nobody else did. Ukraine blatantly interfered in our election.
Also today, the Justice Department watchdog delivered that long-awaited report on the FBI's Russia investigation. Trump has insisted the intelligence community was spying on him and his campaign as part of the, quote, deep state conspiracy.
They were spying on my campaign, and it went right up to the top.
How did it start? You had dirty cops. You had people that are bad FBI folks.
Before I ever even announced they were spying.
I was spied on. What they did to me was illegal.
They spied on our campaign. Who would think that's possible?
Today, the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz issued his nearly 500-page report, which found no evidence to support those claims. Quote, the FBI had an authorized purpose when it opened Crossfire Hurricane, the investigation into the Trump campaign, to obtain information about or protect against a national security threat or federal crime. We did not find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced the decisions. The IG's report did find, quote, serious performance failures along the chain of command of the investigation. Trump responded today with a misrepresentation of the findings while promoting the investigation now being carried out by U.S. Attorney John Durham at the direction of Attorney General Bill Barr.
This was an overthrow of government. This was an attempted overthrow, and a lot of people were in on it, and they got caught. They got caught red-handed. And I look forward to the Durham report, which is coming out in the not-too-distant future.
Let's do this again. The bottom line here, the president has for months said he was the victim of a spy ring from inside our government, an illegal conspiracy, an attempted coup, as you heard him say again there, an attempted overthrow of his government. And this, of course, was none of that. Durham, for his part, weighed in on the IG's report today with a statement that read in part, quote, while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General that we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to predication and how the FBI case was opened. That brought this report from James Comey, FBI director for and during the early stages of the Bureau's Russian inquiry.
What is he doing talking about his work? He's supposed to be a professional. If you must investigate, go get facts and then show them to the American people. But don't be part of a sliming of the IG and the department as a whole. Do your work.
For good measure, Attorney General Barr drew this conclusion from the same IG report we just talked about. The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.